watch and burn.
Hey everybody. So tonight I am wondering, what is Danzig's best record? I mean, there's a couple of ways you could run this one. What is Danzig's best record? What is Danzig's best era? I mean, that could go any number of ways. We could talk about his eras as far as like the Misfits, Samhain, and then Danzig. But here I'm mainly just discussing from the Danzig era, as in like the classic era from 1 through 4, and then the most hated record of his entire career by way of Black Acid Devil, then Satan's Child, Circle of Snakes, Death Red Sabbath, so on and so forth. So what do you think is Danzig's absolute best record? Now personally, I don't know, that's a big question because his first 4 records were absolutely perfect. I know number 4 actually sort of started to lose some people because he got a little too experimental. I know by that point too that his relationship with Ruben had pretty much splintered beyond any kind of possible repair, and he had wanted to experiment with electronics from Danzig 2, but Ruben had always discouraged him, and so that led to the heavy experimentation that started to show up on 4, and then that definitely was the reason behind Danzig overdosing on the use of electronics with Black Acid Devil, and even to a degree with Satan's Child, even though the use of like the industrialized electronics on Satan's Child were scaled back considerably when compared to the overdose that was Black Acid Devil. Personally, I think my favorite Danzig records are 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and Sabbath, because I can't really say one record in particular, because I really like everything Danzig's done. I mean, his Samhain has to be, or Samhain, once again, it has to be his most unsung part of his career. It always seems like everybody knows Danzig for the Misfits, and then of course Danzig by way of songs like Mother. And he also had a career resurgence of sorts when his version, his industrialized version of 13 was used really successfully in The Hangover. And it was used so well that the people from The Hangover asked him to write a song for, I believe it was the 3rd Hangover. And I think he wrote Black Hell for that. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the title of the track at least. And I love Black Hell. I mean, I love the song. God willing, I'm getting the title right. But so I thought that was really cool too. But for me, like I said, I can't really put my finger on what would be my absolute favorite record, because I absolutely love Black Acid Devil. 7th House is on there, and I love that song. Sacrament's on there. His version of Hand of Doom. His version of Come to Silver's on there. The other song that he apparently wrote for Johnny Cash, but unfortunately Cash wasn't able to record it because Danzig's relationship with Ruben and Ruben's label American had fallen apart so severely that he took that song with him, which I think was a huge misstep. Even though Danzig and Ruben had a massive falling out, I still would have loved to have seen Danzig give Come to Silver for Johnny Cash to record, because that song just bleeds Johnny Cash. But nevertheless, that's long said and done with. Johnny Cash passed away a number of years ago, and I don't think Danzig and Ruben have exactly patched anything up either. So I'm talking about dead issues here. But nevertheless, I don't know. I can't figure out what my favorite Danzig record was. I love, my God, Snakes of Christ and 777 and Devil's Plaything. And Long Way Back from Hell is on 2. So 2 is up there. I don't love 3. I've never loved How the Gods Kill. I always felt that was probably the weakest. But then Danzig 4 was so compelling and it was so unique. And I mean, Can't Speak was on there. And Danzig kind of had like a low-key radio hit with Can't Speak. Sadistical was on there, another somewhat more experimental track. Brand New God was on there. I don't know. The more I think about it, like Going Down to Die is on there. 4 is amazing. And I know, like I said, it sort of split the fan base somewhat, but I always think of 4 with I always think back on 4 with a lot of fondness, because I think it's mainly because of Going Down to Die. Now that I think about it, I think that's like my absolute favorite song off 4. But then Black Acid Devil was just such a unique take on the industrial thing. And of course, in the mid-90s, industrial was big, thanks to bands like, Manson and Nine Inch Nails. And so for Danzig to get in on it, and he seemed to do such a really good job, and I was really disappointed that his fan base didn't sort of take to that record more. I know that the main complaint was that his voice was buried behind layers and layers of electronics, and the majority of his fan base are showing up because of Danzig's voice being in the forefront of his music. But that never bothered me. I thought 5 was amazing. But then 7 was absolutely killer too. I mean, fucking Angel Blake's on there. Lieber Skull's on there, which I always thought was Uber Skull. And I mean, 7's amazing. Circle of Snakes, like, I mean, even though his voice on Circle of Snakes really showed that he needed to take a break, and I wish that he had, because his voice sounds really strained on Circle of Snakes, and that's why he took like a million years off. And then when he came back with Death Red Sabbath is wild, because the first half of Death Red Sabbath remind me of like younger Danzig, maybe even like Misfits era Danzig, with tracks like Hammer of the Gods. And then not to mention the fact that On a Wicked Night's on there, which has to be one of the best songs Danzig has ever written. But then Black Laden Crown was really good too, and that was worth the 8-year wait. So I don't know. I'm leaving it there because I rambled way too long here, and I apologize for that. But thank you so much for hanging out with me for almost 6 minutes while I discussed with myself, what is Danzig's best record? What is Danzig's best era? Is it the classic era? Is it the industrial era? Is it the heavy super metal era of his later stuff? Is it the reinvention of sorts that was on Death Red Sabbath? I don't know. But like always, don't forget that you guys are amazing. I'm getting out of here. Have a good night.